Mama, he won't stop. He treats me like I'm a horse. I can't keep up with him. His energy is overwhelming. I can't satisfy him. He's not normal. Bush stood there, her face pale with embarrassment. She had threatened to go back to her father's house, and was still in shock, pleading with her, assuring her that everything would be fine. She explained that Bushi was just inexperienced, and things would improve with time. Reluctantly, Bush agreed to stay. In a quiet village in the eastern part of Nigeria, there was a young man named Bushi. He was tall, handsome, and strong, the dream of every woman in the village. His dark skin shone under the sun, and his muscles rippled with each step he took. His charm was undeniable, and even the older women would glance at him with admiration as he walked by. Despite all the attention, Bushi remained humble and focused. He had been raised by his mother, Ma, who loved him more than anything in the world. Bushi was her only child, and his father had passed away while she was still pregnant with him, leaving her to care for him alone. She poured all her love and energy into raising him, teaching him to respect women and to remain pure until his wedding night. As Bushi came of age, he knew it was time to marry. His eyes had been on a young woman named Shah for quite some time. She was slim, dark-skinned, and incredibly beautiful. Bushi first saw her on a sunny afternoon as she was heading to the stream to fetch water. From the moment he laid eyes on her, he was captivated by her graceful walk and radiant skin. It was as if the universe paused just so he could take in her beauty. He swore she would be his bride, and soon enough, she became just that. Their wedding day was filled with joy, music, and laughter. People from all around the village came to celebrate. The sound of drums echoed through the night, and the young men and women danced until their feet ached. But the real excitement came when the festivities ended, and Bushi led Shah into his heart for the first time as his wife. As a virgin, Bushi was eager to consummate his marriage. His mother had told him that it was his duty as a husband. But as the night progressed, something unexpected happened. Just minutes into their time together, Shah screamed and bolted out of the room, her face pale, her body trembling. "Mama, Mama, he wants to kill me," she cried, her voice echoing through the village. Bushi, confused and alarmed, rushed after her, his body in pain at hearing his wife scream. His mother, hearing the distress, rushed out of her own room, her face filled with confusion. "Shama, what is it?" she asked, her voice shaking with concern. Shah, panting and out of breath, stammered, "Mama, he doesn't stop. He treats me like a horse. I can't keep up with him. His energy is overwhelming, and I can't meet his needs. He's not like anyone else." Bush stood there, her face flushed with embarrassment. She had threatened to return to her father's house, and M was still in shock. She tried to calm her, assuring her that everything would be fine and that Bushi was simply inexperienced. With time, things would improve. After much hesitation, Bush reluctantly agreed to stay. But things didn't get better. Every time Bushi and Shah tried to be together, the same thing happened. Bushi wouldn't stop, and Shah was always left in pain. It didn't take long before Shah couldn't bear it any longer. One morning, she packed her bags and left for her father's house. Bushi had been devastated, and the news quickly spread throughout the village. Some of the women pitied Shah, but most of them thought she was foolish for leaving a man like Bushi. They whispered behind her back, saying she wasn't strong enough to handle him. A few of the younger women even joked that they could manage Bushi better than Shah ever could. Among them was Niece, a tall, bold, and beautiful girl. Niece had always admired Bushi from a distance, and she saw Shah's departure as her chance to win him over. She decided to pursue him, determined to show him that she could satisfy his needs. She flirted with him at every opportunity, making her intentions clear. Bushi, eventually noticing her, began to warm to her, and before long, he married Niece. But on their wedding night, the same pattern repeated. Niece, who had entered the marriage full of excitement, found herself screaming and rushing out of the room, her face flushed with fear. "I can't stand it," she cried out. "He's not normal. He never gets tired. Niece didn't even stay until morning. She packed her bags that very night and went straight back to her father's house. Em was horrified. She couldn't understand what was happening with her son. She had raised him well, teaching him to be a good man, but now it seemed that no woman could stay with him. In desperation, she decided to take Bushi to a local healer, hoping that he might have answers. The healer, after examining Bushi carefully, shook his head. He told them that everything was fine and that Bushi was perfectly healthy. Relieved but still uneasy, Em and Bushi left the healer's house, but deep down, Em wasn't convinced. Meanwhile, rumors about Bushi's troubled marriages spread throughout the village. The women who had once admired him now saw him as a challenge. They whispered that maybe Shah was too thin for him, or that Niece was too large. Some women believed they knew better and that they could handle him. Soon, Bushi found himself surrounded by eager women, all hoping to try their luck. Initially, he resisted, but eventually, he saw it as an opportunity to find someone who could truly match him. He continued taking the healer's advice, thinking it would help. Within a few weeks, Bushi had been with nearly all the women in the village, but each time, the result was the same. No woman could keep up with him, and one by one, they all left, some in tears, others in fear. The village began to talk, and soon, the conclusion was clear. Something was wrong with Bushi. Some whispered that he had been cursed. The men, once impressed by him, now kept their distance, and Bushi, who had once been the village hero, became a lonely outcast. One day, Em could no longer bear the shame and sorrow. She decided to take Bushi to a powerful native doctor in a neighboring village. Baba, the healer, was feared and respected by all. People believed he had the ability to see beyond the physical world and into the spirit realm. When Em and Bushi arrived at Baba's shrine, they were greeted by the scent of incense and the distant sound of drums. Baba, an old man with a long white beard, sat before a fire, staring into the flames. After listening to their story, Baba let out a deep, resonant laugh. "You cannot deceive the gods," he said in a voice full of sorrow. Em, confused, asked, "What do you mean, wise one?" Baba turned to Toba and asked, "Do you remember the promise you made when you sought a child from the gods?" Em's heart skipped a beat. She had long forgotten. Before Bushi was born, she and her husband had struggled with infertility for many years. Desperate, they went to the shrine and pleaded with the deity for a child. The priest of the shrine had promised them a son on one condition. After the child was born, they must sacrifice 3 cows to the deity. But before Em could fulfill her promise, her husband passed away, leaving her alone and poor. The promise faded into the background as time passed. Baba fixed his gaze on her and said, "The deity is angered. Bushi's troubles are a result of this unfulfilled vow. If you do not act soon, the gods will take his life." Em's hands flew to her mouth, overwhelmed by guilt and fear. Baba's words hit her like a heavy blow. They had no choice but to honor the promise. The next day, Em sold one of the few pieces of land she owned near the stream, a plot that had been in her family for generations. With the money, they purchased 3 cows and went to the shrine to make the sacrifice. The priest performed the ritual, and as the final prayer was spoken, a gentle breeze swept through the shrine, a sign that the gods had accepted their offering. "It is done," the priest declared, his voice calm. "The gods have accepted your sacrifice." Afterward, both Bushi and Em felt an overwhelming sense of relief. They believed the curse had finally been lifted, but the true challenge remained: finding a woman who would accept him, love him, and stay by his side. At first, Bushi was hesitant. He had already endured so much pain and rejection. He had watched both Shah and Niece, women he cared for, flee from him in fear. But his mother, always the optimist, reassured him. "My son," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder, "the gods have forgiven us. You are free now. Don't let fear hold you back. Love will find you." With his mother's encouragement, Bushi decided to try again. He returned to Shah and Nice, hoping to mend what had been broken. He apologized to both, explaining the cause of the troubles in their marriages and assuring them that the curse had been lifted. But both women turned him away. They had moved on from the fear and trauma they had experienced, and neither was willing to risk it again. Bushi was crushed, but he understood. They deserved peace, and he wished them well. Finding a wife in his own village now seemed impossible. The women who once pursued him now avoided him, and Bushi felt like an outcast in his own home. His once bright future now felt clouded by the past. But his mother didn't want him to give up. She encouraged him to search beyond the village. So Bushi set out for a neighboring village, hoping to start anew without the weight of the rumors. It was in this village that he met Afa. Afa was unlike any woman Bushi had ever known. She was strong-willed, sharp-minded, and had a kind heart. Her beauty was undeniable. Her dark, smooth skin gleamed like polished ebony, and her eyes sparkled with confidence. What drew Bushi to her most was her spirit. She was brave, unaffected by the rumors and gossip that had followed him. When Bushi first approached her, he was nervous. He had heard the whispers had reached her village as well, and he feared Afa would turn him away before he had a chance to explain himself. To his surprise, Afa wasn't bothered by the stories. "I've heard the rumors," she said, her gaze steady as it met his. "But I don't let other people's words dictate my actions. I prefer to discover the truth for myself." Her words hit Bushi's troubled heart like a soothing balm. For the first time in what felt like forever, he dared to hope again. Over the following weeks, Bushi and Afa spent time getting to know each other. She listened intently as he shared his story. The curse, the sacrifice, and the hardships he had endured. Afa didn't flinch. Instead, her respect for him deepened as she understood how much he had silently suffered, carrying the weight of a promise that wasn't even his to keep. When Bushi finally asked Afa to marry him, she smiled warmly and accepted. Their wedding was much smaller than the previous ones, but it overflowed with joy and love. Seeing the happiness shining in her son's eyes, wiped away joyful tears. For the first time in years, she felt that everything would truly be all right. As the evening drew to a close and the guests began to leave, Bushi and Afa entered their home as husband and wife. This was the moment he had feared for so long, the moment that had always ended in disappointment. He was still uncertain that the curse had truly lifted, despite the sacrifices made. He looked at Afa, who smiled back at him with eyes full of reassurance. "Don't be afraid," she whispered, sensing his hesitation. The night passed peacefully. For the first time, Bushi felt what real love and connection could be. Afa didn't scream, didn't run away, and didn't fear him. Instead, she welcomed him, and together they found joy in each other. Bushi felt an overwhelming sense of relief and happiness. By the time morning light filtered into their home, both knew they had something truly special. The curse had truly been lifted, and Bushi was finally free. Word spread quickly through the village that Bushi had found a wife who stayed. The women were stunned. How could Afa, after hearing all the rumors, survive a night with him? Some whispered that she must have a secret, some special power that allowed her to do what no other woman could. Once eager to claim Bushi for themselves, the village women were now filled with curiosity and jealousy. They flocked around Afa whenever she visited the market, questioning her and trying to uncover the mystery of her success. Afa would only smile and say, "Love is not a competition. I accepted him for who he is, and he accepted me. That's all." Her words left the women speechless. It wasn't about who could endure Bushi, but about finding someone who truly loved him. Bushi and Afa became an example of love and patience for the village. As time passed, the rumors about Bushi faded, replaced by stories of his happy marriage. Together, Bushi and Afa had several children, each one bringing even more joy to their home. Bushi, once a lonely outcast, was now a proud father, a loving husband, and a respected man in the village. Em remained grateful for the rest of her days. Every morning, she would wake up and thank the gods for sparing her son. She never forgot the promise they had broken, and she often shared the story with her grandchildren, reminding them that promises to the gods should never be taken lightly. As she grew older, Em watched her son's family grow, her heart swelling with pride. Bushi had become everything she had always hoped for: a good man, a faithful husband, and a loving father. Though her journey with the gods had been filled with pain and loss, she was thankful they had shown mercy in the end. Thank you all for watching. If you made it to the end, don't forget to subscribe, share your thoughts, and share this story with your loved ones. See you in the next one. Bye.